So I'll just repeat myself. We'll go back to the beginning. Oops. All right. Hello and welcome again. If you are just joining, this is the Introduction to Statista virtual webinar. My name is Hadiza Sa-Aadu. I am the Small Business and Nonprofit Specialist here at the Kansas City Public Library. And just before I hit record, we had gone through 4 learning objectives, which I'll repeat now. The first is by the end of this call, or by the end of this session, you should be able to locate and access Statista through the digital catalog. Secondly, you should be able to browse topics available through the navigation bar in Statista. Thirdly, you should be able to use keywords to search for statistics on specific topics. And last but not least, you should be familiar with the different types of content that are available to you through Statista. So before I hit record, I had asked the folks that are on this webinar what led them to this session. And a couple people have mentioned something in the chat, which I will read out loud. Faith said that they really enjoy data and this sounded interesting. So here she is. Thank you for joining. And Mary said she wanted to know what it is. Awesome. Okay. So we'll go ahead and get started. First things first. I know I've put this up as the last learning objective, but I do think this is one of the most important things. Statista is a database that houses statistics on thousands of different topics. And so if you do a search in Statista, which we will do after going through this slide, the different types of content that you can access include statistics, which are in the form of actual numbers and infographics in forms of bar graphs or different types of graphs, which we'll look at. Then you can also access forecasts and surveys on different topics and industries. And third, again, related to the first, infographics exist through Statista that help to elaborate on the raw data that you can see. And then we will look at this more in depth, but you have access to pretty detailed information about different trending topics. And then last but not least, you've got studies and reports. So we will exit this presentation to go into our digital catalog. So if you've never used any of our resources in our digital catalog, I will start from scratch. So first thing is we will be on the Kansas City Public Library homepage, which is just kclibrary.org. And so once you're on the homepage, you will see this navigation bar. You'll go all the way to the right and hover over resources/research. Once you do that, you will see that all of our digital resources are listed alphabetically. So we're going to go to S for Statista. And at this point, if you are in any library location, you can click on this more info to learn about more information about the database, and then click on this button here and just access Statista without having to input any more information. If you're at home, You can access Statista remotely, but you will have to make sure that you have an active library card. So you will be taken to a screen that will have you input your library card number and then your PIN. So if you need to renew a library card or get a new library card, you can do that by calling the main line, which I can share at the end of this, or you can email as well. Okay, so now we're going to access Statista, and you'll see what it looks like. All right. So now that we're here, in order to demonstrate the features of Statista, I'm just going to start fresh. I'm curious about this database. I'm curious about what's here. I do want to learn more about inflation, but I want to see what topics Statista has that Statista has deemed most important or most relevant. So we see this Statista logo and the Kansas City Public Library logo, and welcome Kansas City Public Library, which means that we are using the library's license. Below this, we've got our navigation bar, which starts with statistics. So once we hover over this, what we see are major industries that Statista has categorized, starting with consumer goods, internet, media and advertising, retail and trade, sports and recreation, technology and communications, transportation and logistics, travel, tourism, and hospitality. So we'll hover back to the top. What comes up? So I haven't clicked on any of this yet. I'm just hovering over each of these different industries. So when I hover over this, what we see here are statistics based off of different categorizations. So first, we are viewing statistics based off of popularity. So we can click on this first one, revenue of the cosmetic and beauty industry in the US from 2002 to 2022, just to see what this statistic looks like. Okay. So once we've clicked on this, what we're seeing is a bar graph that looks like a time series. If you're familiar with what that is, a time series graph shows changes over time. So how to read this graph? We're looking at the revenue of the cosmetic and beauty industry from the past 20 years. And the scale is in billions of dollars. So on the y-axis here, we've got this denominated in tens of billions of dollars. And so from 2002, we started at 40.42 billion. Dipped down pretty significantly the next year. And then we see we've come up in 2009, right around the housing crash. Then we see another dip, going up, going up, going up. And then since 2015, we've seen a pretty steady decline, more or less, with a little bit of a peak coming up in recent times. So that's just a basic overview of one statistic to look at. So below this bar graph, we've got a report that we can read more about, published on July 27th. And this is published by the Statista Research Department, which we can learn more about by clicking on the link. So we've got a basic overview of the history of the cosmetics industry in the United States and globally. And we've got a breakdown of the industry into 6 main categories, which include skincare, accounting for the largest share, 41% as of 2021. So interestingly, in recent years, consumers have been spending higher levels of disposable income on cosmetics than they had in the past. Unfortunately, the global financial crisis put a damper on the market for some years, making more affordably priced merchandise and do-it-yourself at-home products key in the beauty market. However, as of 2020, the average annual expenditure on cosmetics, perfume, and other personal care products among US consumers increased slightly to approximately $199. Skincare products such as facial cleansers were among the cosmetic products with the highest number of unit sales in the United States, proving the growing success of the category. So we've got a hyperlink here to the average annual expenditure on cosmetics, perfume, and other personal care. If you want to take a look at what that was in 2020, we can get a specific look. And now, once we've clicked on that, we're taken to another time series bar graph. And if we look at 2020, we see, as they said, $199.17 spent on average annually. And then we can also compare that back to 2010 and see that there has been quite a significant increase. And so what we're seeing here is that the perfume and skincare part of the cosmetics industry, which in the Outlook report or the overview report mentioned that it has accounted for 41% of sales, is contributing most to the growth that we're seeing in recent years. All right. So I mentioned earlier that I'm interested in finding statistics about inflation. So now that we've done just a little bit of a dip your toe into what does Statista have to just show me without putting anything into Statista, we're going to go ahead and do a keyword search. And I'm going to open this screen back up. I can. Okay. All right, and we're back to the homepage of Statista. Underneath the navigation bar, where we just took a very brief look into the consumer goods and cosmetics and beauty industry, now I want to look at what Statista has to show me about inflation. So below the navigation bar, we've got our search bar. We're just going to do a basic keyword search here. Inflation. So once I've done a keyword search, I can go ahead and browse the search results. First things first, left-hand side underneath this sort by and location focus. We've got the different kinds of statistics available from the search. And then we've got studies and reports and the sources that they come from. And then we've got this expert tools section, but we're not going to cover that for today. So we'll go back up to the top and orient ourselves on what we're looking at here. So I just put in a keyword search for inflation. And Statista has defaulted our search in terms of filtering by relevance, with a location focus being the United States. For now, I'm going to keep it like this. I'm interested in how inflation has affected the entire United States. And we can also look at different types of filters. So it starts off with relevance, but we can also sort by date of publication as popularity. I'm going to go ahead and sort by date of publication because I want to see what recent statistics have been published about inflation. And so once I do that, I need to refresh my search. Okay. So if I want to further refine my search, we've got over 1,000 search results. Might be a little bit unwieldy. I want to just, for now, look at the statistics. Just quite a lot. So once I do that, I've filtered the search results to see data visualizations. So gas has been gas prices have definitely been a pain point for everyone. I want to look at that one first. Okay. Okay, wow, this gave us, I didn't expect this entire title. Daily average regular gas and diesel prices in the United States throughout the war in Ukraine. So this is very interesting. So this isn't necessarily mentioning inflation, but we are seeing a bigger picture painted. So in this is a real-time series. I know that I was categorizing the other bar graphs that we were looking at as time series, but this is actually a time series graph. A time series includes a line of fit like this. So we're starting in February of 2022, ending with September 18th. So we're seeing I remember gas spiking in March. So yeah, that checks out. And then it started to dip. So we're seeing here two types of gas, regular and diesel. I use regular. I'm not sure what most people here use, but what we can at least say here is regular is going to correspond to consumers, and diesel is probably going to correspond more to commercial users of gas. So it makes sense that diesel, of course, with diesel being a higher price point, but also people who are using diesel fuel are using a lot more fuel. So it makes sense that this line would be significantly higher, but it also makes sense that the price changes would fluctuate similarly, as we're seeing here. So we can hover over any date that's listed here. We see that on February 23rd, diesel was $3.96, regular was $3.54 on average across the US. And then it spiked on March 10th. Went down a little bit, went down, and then started to steadily rise. And we were feeling the pain in April through May, through June. I remember end of June thinking that gas was going to go up to almost $7 here in Kansas City. But fortunately, at least relatively speaking, gas prices started to lessen. And now we've seen that they've been lessening. And in August, what's really interesting is we're seeing kind of a divergence a little bit. Late August, we're seeing a little bit of a divergence between more commercial users of gasoline versus consumers, regular consumers. So what we're seeing here with this black line is a little bit of a spike corresponding with a further decrease for regular gas, which is very interesting. And I wonder what that is speaking more to. And then after the beginning of September, end of August, now we're just seeing a continuous decline. So we'll see what happens. So we have a report published on September 21st. This is another form of content that we have available on this topic. You can read more. So this report is talking about the war in Ukraine and how it has affected price stability. So we're getting more context. Below that, we've got additional statistics that are on the topic. And so if we recall, the initial keyword search was inflation. And then I refined the search only to look at the statistics available. And the first search result was gas prices. So we are looking at a specific indicator for inflation. So what we're seeing here, as far as other statistics on the topic, we're seeing more of an elaboration on gas and driving. So here we have vehicles and road traffic. We've got then petroleum and refinery. Again, petroleum and petroleum and refinery, but each different aspects of that. So we could go one way, or we could go another way. We could go the road traffic way, or we could go the petroleum and refinery way, which talks more about the supply side of things. Below the other statistics on the topic, we've got a more specific overview on this specific topic, oil and gasoline prices. So we've got production, supply side, and then consumption from 1998 to 2021. We've got benchmarks, which Statista has indicated are the most important statistics within this topic, which we can browse through. So weekly oil prices in Brent, largest slump in crude oil prices during coronavirus pandemic by type 2020. I want to see if there's anything that might tell us why there was that divergence at the beginning of August between diesel and regular gas prices. Let's see, maybe this might tell us. Monthly average basket crude oil price. So average monthly OPEC basket crude oil price from July 2020 to July 2022. This may not tell us much. So what we're looking at here is the average price per barrel of crude oil. And yep, this definitely checks out. I remember gas being a lot less expensive back in 2020. So we're seeing there's been pretty much a steady and then increasingly sharper increase in the price per barrel, which we see peaks in June and starts to decline a little bit in July. This only goes to July. But this report was published on August 22nd. Monthly average crude oil prices of the OPEC basket, 2020 through 2022. So I'm just going to go ahead and read this. In July 2022, the average price of the OPEC basket was $108.75 per barrel. Monthly averages reached upwards of $100 because of greater demand forecasts and geopolitical tension culminating in the Russia-Ukraine war in late February. The OPEC basket is a weighted average of prices for petroleum blends produced by OPEC countries. So now we are getting more information on what OPEC is. And I needed a little bit of familiarization because the last time I studied anything about OPEC, it was rote memory back in middle school. And so I don't really remember much other than gas and a bunch of countries, and the US was not a part of it. So OPEC stands for Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and was founded in 1960 in Baghdad, Iraq. The main aim of OPEC is to coordinate the oil policies of its members and thus to have more influence on the international oil market. It is used as an important benchmark for crude oil prices. Okay, so the OPEC basket oil price is defined by the price of the so-called OPEC reference basket. So what this basket is an average of the prices of petroleum blends that are produced by the OPEC members. So the countries that are the members of OPEC are Algeria, Angola, Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, Iraq, Iran, Kuwait, Libya, Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, and the United Arab Emirates. Some of these oil blends are, for example, Saharan blend from Algeria, Basra light from Iraq, and Arab light from Saudi Arabia. The OPEC reference basket includes both heavy and light crude oils and is heavier than most other crude oil mixtures, benchmarks. OPEC's oil production, another statistic that we can look at, amounted to 31.7 million barrels per day in 2021. So I'm going to bet that if we click on this link to OPEC's oil production, we're going to see another bar graph that gives us a display of the amount of barrels per day on average throughout the years. So let's see. All right. So what we're seeing here is a bar graph of the OPEC nations' crude oil production happening from 1998 to 2021 in thousands of barrels per day. So what we're reading here is for each year listed, we are looking at, it doesn't say this, but I'm assuming this is the average amount of barrels per day throughout the entire year. So in 1998, we have 30,748 barrels per day on average being produced by OPEC countries. And we see that that has not gone much below this number. In 2002, it went a little bit below, and we can probably guess why. Probably had to do a little bit with 9/11. Since then, we have not dipped below, or OPEC has not dipped below the 30,000 mark. And we see in 2021, production was 31,745 barrels per day. I'm going to go back to my initial search and see how else I can refine the search. So I searched for inflation. I sorted by date of publication with the location focus of the United States. Went on a little bit of a rabbit hole, clicking on hyperlinked statistics to look at the benchmarks and how they have changed over time. Learned a little bit more about oil and gas and OPEC. But now I want to see some other things about inflation. So we first refined the search by focusing on statistics. We've also looked at some reports through those statistics. What I want to do now is look at forecasts and surveys. So what we're looking at here are different topics related to inflation that are producing some kind of forecast or survey of a population. So we've got saving measures due to rising costs in the UK. So what we can see here is obviously this first result is not related to the United States, but it was published in 2022. If I change this sort by to relevance and refresh the search, we get the same thing. All right, so we've got saving measures due to rising costs in the UK, 2022. Video on demand revenue in Italy, 2017 through 2027 by segment. fashion consumer spending per capita in Europe, 2021 by country. Fashion consumer spending per capita in Europe, 2010 through 2027. So let's see what these forecasts and surveys have to say about inflation. Okay. Planned saving measures due to rising costs in the United Kingdom. So we're looking at a bar graph breakdown of different consumer goods, starting with current contracts and subscriptions, streaming services. We've got purchasing clothes, can look at this a little. Traveling and vacation, transport and mobility, cosmetics, beauty, and health products. So let's figure out how to read this graph. Okay, we've got percentages listed, showing the percentage displayed by the graph. Let's expand the statistic. Look at that bottom. Okay. So on this x-axis here, we've got a percentage share of respondents. So what we're looking at is the results of a survey. We want to know a little bit more about this survey. We can hover over here on the right-hand side. We see that the source is a Statista Global Consumer Survey by Statista, published by Statista. And we can access the link to the source itself. And we've got a release date of August 2022. So what we're seeing here is a breakdown of how people who responded to this survey are feeling or how they are behaving based off of what they indicated on the survey. So if we want to understand the survey a little bit more, let's go ahead and click on the source link. So this is under finance and assets. This survey offers exciting insights into the saving and investing habits of consumers. Find out how much consumers are saving each month, where they get their information, and whom they consult for advice. So we've got highlights here, which are reasons for saving, the most popular investment opportunities, information about insurance and retirement. So let's view these results. Before we do that, we can look over here by country. So we started off accessing, we got here because we searched for inflation, sorted by relevance, had the geographic location set to the United States, but our first search result was a survey about spending and saving habits for people in the United Kingdom who are dealing with rising costs. So now that this survey also has respondents from the United States, as well as Germany, Australia, Canada, France, India, and Mexico. So if we want to understand the graph we were just looking at, which is focused on the UK, we can go ahead and see that. We're going to go ahead and look at this button here, see the results. At this point, I don't want to take this survey, so I'm just going to X out of that. So now we've gotten into a little bit of an advanced part of Statista, but what we're looking at here is a way to view the results of this survey. So over here on this left-hand side, we are looking at the survey items. So we've got characteristics and demographics, which allows us to get pretty granular. We've got banking, which let's look at what we've got here. Okay, attitudes towards finance, bank account by type, primary bank account by brand, primary bank account again. So we've got traditional and direct. I'm not quite sure what these things are. I'm just gonna scroll through and see what we can find that is related to the survey results that we were just looking at, which was for consumers in the United Kingdom. I know right now we've defaulted to the territory of the United States. We could do that. What do you guys think? Do you want to look at the US or would you rather look at the UK? I'm trying to stick to what the search results were showing, but it might be more relevant to look at the United States right now. All right, for the sake of the continuation of this particular search, I'm going to go ahead and just mark this as the United Kingdom. That way we can see more information about the survey itself in terms of what we were seeing in that bar graph. Okay, so in that bar graph, I know that I looked through that pretty quickly, but what we were looking at was the percentage of the respondents to the survey who had to say something about their saving habits on different consumer goods. So we'll go back to that just to reorient ourselves. But before we do that, I want to see what survey items correspond to that bar graph that we were looking at. So we were talking about savings. Let's look at attitudes towards savings. So we can, in this, we can put this in our rows. Somebody has mentioned something. Any way to search for inflation affecting food prices? Let's do that. Okay, so this is a great search path. So let's go back to, since Mary asked, we're going to go back to the keyword search, inflation. And based off of how we have been using this search, Mary, you are interested in looking for how inflation has been affecting food prices. Let's see what we have here in our search results. Okay, so let's look at topics under statistics. Okay, so this is a bit more of a wieldy search. We've got 57 search results. Ta-da. Food inflation, number 3. Let's see what we've got under this topic. Okay, so first things first, we've got a report published by Emma Bedford on August 17th. We've got a basic introduction to food inflation. We can read more about that. Underneath this overview report, we've got a statistic, which is the global inflation rate forecast for 2022, which is 7.4%. Now, that seems high. I don't know much about the benchmark for the inflation rate, but that seems pretty high. We can click on this to learn more about what that means. Let's go ahead and do that. As far as how that relates to food. So we've got just the general global inflation rate from 2017 to 2027. And this is a forecast. Obviously, we're not in 2027. So before 2021, all of this is observed data, observed inflation rates. And then based off of that, this forecast or this graph is basically forecasting the next 7 years after 2020. And that is indicated by the asterisk. I cannot pronounce that word. Asterisk. So we can look at this. We see in 2022, the inflation rate has been projected to be 7.4%. And like I said, that seemed high, and it is comparatively to 2021 and the last observed data of 3.23% in 2020. So a lot has changed, obviously, in the past 2 years. So essentially what this is showing the comparison of inflation rates year over year. So let's go back to food inflation. So underneath the global inflation rate, we see the country with the highest forecast inflation rate, which tells us that we can probably look at a breakdown of inflation rates by country. So Argentina has the highest forecast inflation rate. Let's look at how this, So what we're looking at is a forecast of inflation rate worldwide from 2021 to 2023 by country. So starting with Argentina, alphabetically listed down to the US. This is not every country, obviously. But we see that Argentina has had the highest inflation by a lot. And of course, that's getting higher. But we can see that each country is broken down by year, starting with 2023, 2022, 2021 in blue. So you can hover over each country to see the inflation rates forecast for each of the years that this country or that this graph is showing, 2021, 2022, and 2023. So let's look at the US. We see that forecasted inflation for 2023 is down to 2.54% from 2022 at 4.78%, which was up slightly from 2021. So yes, food prices have gone up in the US, but they're projected to go down. So underneath this visualization of the data, we have another report. We've got additional statistics on the topic, starting with the economy, and then going to an international perspective in different countries, India, Canada, the UK. And then statistics on inflation worldwide. Again, now we're going down another little bit of a rabbit hole. So one thing that may be helpful as you explore Statista is have a specific question in mind. It's definitely interesting and a good use of time as far as orienting yourself as a new person to Statista, as I have been, by just kind of browsing the statistics and playing around with a keyword and seeing where it leads you. But having a more focused question can help you with your refining of your search. So Mary, thank you again for sharing that in the chat as far as searching for information about inflation and how that affects food prices. So that has kind of contained our search a little bit. And from that, you can see how you might be able to add additional questions that might lead to other keywords that help you get more information about the topic. Okay. Go ahead. All right. So now I'm going to go back to the presentation and share a few links to additional help and resources. If I can get it. So I need to put it in presentation mode. Seems. There we go. All right. So we have come to the end of our session today, Introduction to Statista. So hopefully you've gotten a little bit more familiar with how Statista works, what kind of information you can find through Statista, and how you can refine any kind of search that you do through Statista, whether you're browsing through topics that lead to search results, or you are putting in a keyword to lead to the search results. So if you are getting stuck, I have identified a few links for you that you can access to help you. So there is a whole page that goes pretty in depth on basically how to use Statista. So I'll click on it so that you can see. Let me know, are you still seeing my screen? Are you seeing a Statista page now, or are you still seeing the PowerPoint? You're seeing the Statista page? Awesome. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the working with Statista page. So this, if you just want to have basically a guide before you really dive into Statista, this is a really great place to start. Don't worry about the Statista account setup because you will already be logged in through the library account if you are accessing this remotely, or if you're already at the library, this is not important. So don't worry about the Statista account setup or the access to Statista. What you want to focus on here is the working with Statista. So you can start here on how to filter by content type. Just click on that link, and it just starts with an overview of how to find content with a screenshot of what that looks like. We already took a look at this through Statista itself. So you can see here, this is a keyword search for e-commerce. So we've got tips here, and then how to filter by content type, which we played with. and then learn more. Again, as far as corporate solutions or account things like that, don't worry about that. You can ask the Statista team a question through the form, which I also have a link for in the PowerPoint. So that is for filtering search results by content type. Then there's another page on how to get better search results. And with this, we've got a tutorial that you can take a look at here. So this is super helpful if you are more of a visual learner than a here's how to do it. But if you would rather read through it, there's also an explanation on quick filters here with a screenshot. And we played with the sort by and also talked about the location focus. Now, we did not get into this, but if you want to refine your search further, there are expert filters, and this will give an overview of that. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there because there is quite a lot of information here. And it is all laid out as far as kind of an order of operations. So starting by filtering content type, refining your search, getting into configuration of visualizations, which we did not touch at all. And we also did not talk about downloading the statistics themselves, but this is where you can get that how-to guide. And then we also didn't really cover this, but the information about where the sources of the statistics are coming from, which let's take a look at this as far as knowing how to access that offhand. So a lot of times when I'm working with people who are needing to create a business plan, either for a loan or they are working on a business plan related to a grant for a nonprofit, it's important for them to have the sources of the information as far as the statistics that they find through whatever database they're using. And so Statista provides that information pretty readily. So here is where you have basically how to find that information. So what we see here is next to every statistic, there is a box that includes the information shown below here. So we looked at this a little. So we're seeing a bar graph, and the source is talking about the organization that basically created the report, took the data, surveyed the people. Sources, survey by, published by, so then who took the time to actually publish it, the source link, so you can see more detail, and then the release date of the content. All right. So this page is, again, working with Statista. So below that, you can get more information as well as about the different content types to familiarize yourself if you're totally new to the world of data. And then we've got expert tools, which I will dive into at a later date, but you can definitely play with on your own. Personalization, I haven't looked at all, but this is probably not important, again, related to an account. So I wouldn't necessarily focus on that unless you're talking about saving different favorites in your search results. Okay. Then if you are at a point with your data collection where you are wanting to use that to present elsewhere, so you need to publish it somehow. There's ways to do that. And then you can look at those how-to guides underneath publishing Statista content. Statista for corporate customers does not apply. Statista for universities also does not apply. And then there's more Statista services, which include the Global Consumer Survey, Statista Q, e-commerce, db.com, content and information design, which don't believe all of these we have access to, but I do believe we have the Global Consumer Survey. So again, this is something you can take a look at on your own. So back to help and resources. I will go ahead and share this. Are you seeing my presentation screen again?
Yes, we see the screen.
I will just stop and then do it again to make sure.
Could you put your email in the chat?
All right. So we just looked at the Working with Statista page, which has quite a bit of information on how to basically best use Statista and how to use the information that you find in Statista. FAQ is also quite helpful because it will list frequently asked questions based off of different categories. Account, not really relevant, but if you have questions about the data itself, there are frequently asked questions that you can take a look at the answers to. Features, if you're getting stuck on any of the features when you're doing a search, these questions can help you find the solution to the issue. Statista itself, if you want to contact Statista, information on how to do that. If you're running into any errors or bugs, you can also report them. And then information on cookies and why they're necessary for Statistas. A lot of people tend to have questions on that. All right, now search. This is probably an FAQ section that will be super relevant to most. So we've got the different frequently asked questions related to search. So if you are trying to figure out how to find statistics on a specific topic, like Mary, like you provided food prices and inflation, you can learn the answer to that. And then also get additional tips. And then also why? Why are multiple statistics for the same topic shown? So you might have wondered that yourself. That's actually something that I wondered when I first started using Statista about a couple of months ago. So the resulting statistics are gathered from multiple sources, and as a result, many similar statistics on the same topic will be presented. So if you want to find a very specific statistic, that's also another common question. You can find a specific statistic by using the search function. Again, the keyword search. Simply enter a keyword into the search box like we did, and all the statistics that match the keyword will be listed. So this is basically telling us how does the keyword search function. So it's basically saying, if you enter a keyword, the results that show are going to correspond to that keyword. If you enter two keywords, only the statistics that contain both the terms will be shown. So that is really telling us what that relevancy filter is referring to. It's really referring to the keyword. Okay, and we played with this a little, but again, this is a common topic. How can I narrow my search further? The first thing is to filter the functions on the left-hand side of the search results. And again, there's another link to working with Statista through that. So this is an interesting question, but comes up, especially when you get into the deeper realms of Statista. Does Statista help to research data? So what Statista says is they cannot offer free assistance in researching or locating data because of the high volume of requests. If you would like further research or information, they recommend consulting the Research and Analysis Service, which you can look at, please, which we can assume is paid for. Also note, Statista does not offer advice for students working or dealing with SPSS software. Such consulting would lead to the empirical evaluation of student work. So if you happen to be a student, Statista staff are not available to help you if you have questions about how to use statistical software. Specifically the software called SPSS, which is a commonly used form of software to produce data visualizations and analyze data. But they provide that research and analysis service. So if you are in a position where you have a budget to get deeper into some kind of market research for an industry that you are trying to get into as a business, or if you're trying to pivot into one, and you really need like very specific information, Statista does provide that type of help for a cost. But that is something that you can use if you are in a position to do so. Last but not least, we already looked at contacting Statista. I've got a link to that in this PowerPoint, but you can always set up a one-on-one meeting with me. And you can do that through my Calendly link. And that is linked in this presentation, which will be shared with everybody who RSVP'd to this live session, including all of you who are here now. So I do 30-minute or 60-minute Zoom meetings. So if you just have a general, I want to work with you on how to use Statista or how to best, I just feel like I would be better working with someone to help me with a search through Statista. Please feel free to take advantage of my calendar, either in a 30-minute or a 60-minute meeting, and you can just specify Statista in the form. So once you click on either the 30 or 60-minute meeting, you will be taken to my calendar, excuse me, and then you will see what I have available. So we click on a time or a day, and then click on a time. Once you hit on confirm, then you'll put your name, email. If you want to add a guest, you can do so. I like to have information about how to contact you in case we have any issues. And then there are different responses to the question, what are you seeking assistance with? If none of these fit, you can just click on other and fill in. So if it's just Statista, just a general overview of Statista, you can write that here. If it's related to a nonprofit or a business, I would love to know that. And so you can just indicate that. And then I also love to know, how did you hear about the business and nonprofit consultations that we have here at the library? And then if there's anything additional that you want to add, feel free to do that. You don't have to, though. So that is my Calendly. A lot of people don't know about that, which is why I wanted to show the form itself. I will make sure that you all have that link in an email. It is also hyperlinked in this PowerPoint presentation. So with that said, Since you guys are all here, I'm going to go ahead and stop my share and see if anybody has any specific questions based off of anything that I presented today, or anything that has come up just now in thinking. Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and assume that silence means, and then no pings in the chat means that there are no hovering questions from our time today. So what I will be doing is following up by email with a recording of this session, as well as a PDF of the PowerPoint, which will include the hyperlinks, so you can access that. And I will also include in the email the direct links to Statista in the digital catalog, as well as my link to schedule time with me in case you would like to do that. All right, so with that said, I want to thank you again for your time today. Thank you for joining this session, Introduction to Statista. You will be hearing from me shortly. Thank you.